everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So I was going to say this at the end, but I'm going to say it at the beginning because I'm very proud of him. My son, Hayden, I am the co-founder of Zea Relief, and yes, I'm a naturopath. And I've been producing Zea Relief products now for about 10 years. Sadly, my husband and the father of Hayden passed away 3 years ago, and Hayden has jumped in and taken our company to the next level. So I'm very proud of him because without him, I wouldn't be standing here today, I can assure you of that right now. And I've never done this before, so this is very new to me to get up and present. It'll be coming from a very personal level as a naturopath and a healer, and my own sort of life experiences. So thank you. And today I'd like to talk about reflexology and Kunzea oil. So I use reflexology and Kunzea oil to help with balancing my clients on a daily basis. So for all of you that know a little bit about reflexology, it's an amazing way to balance the physical body, but it's also a catalyst for helping to relax the mind and balance the emotions. And together with Kunzea Essential Oil, which is a beautiful anti-inflammatory oil which helps to reduce pain. Of course, when we reduce pain in people, we actually help to calm the mind. And so by using those both together, I find I'm able to bring complete relaxation to a lot of my clients. It's very powerful. So the way that my presentation will run today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the feet, and actually I'm going to keep my shoes off because as a reflexologist I feel really weird with those on. So there you go. I'm going to talk a little bit about our feet because people don't take a lot of notice of their feet, and it's one of the most important parts of our body, I believe. Then I'm going to talk about foot reflexology, followed by Kunzea Essential Oil, and then how I use both in my practice to help to keep people balanced and happy and nice and calm. So, a little bit about me and where I come from. So I was born in Sydney, and at the ripe old age of 21, I got on a plane and went one way to London with two of my friends. I worked as a travel agent back then, that's what you did. You got on a plane and you went one way, right? But I went for 10 years, I didn't come back for 10 years. My parents were horrified. So I was meant to come back 6 months later, and I just didn't because I was having a great time over there. But that's why I sort of got involved in alternative therapies in London. So my story, the reason I got involved in alternative therapies, I'd experienced quite a lot of trauma as a child with sexual abuse. And so when I was living in London, and I had a lot of residual anxiety because of that, and anxiety attacks and panic attacks and pretty bad ones. So when I was living in London and I saw this opportunity to go to a health farm, I thought, you know what, that sounds like a pretty cool idea. So I checked myself in for 5 days, and that's where I saw a big sign up saying reflexology treatments, which I don't think a lot of people even knew what reflexology was then. It was back in the 80s. I mean, thankfully people understand it now, but back then it was very new. So I booked myself in for a reflexology treatment, and I still remember to this day how amazingly blissed out I was after that treatment finished. So much so that I said to the lady who did it, I really need to learn how to do that so that I can help people to feel the way that I felt that day. I had no anxiety, I had no stress, I just felt like I just wanted to walk away on a cloud. And so that was what launched me into alternative therapies way back then. And she also said to me back then, listen, if you feel overwhelmed and if you feel really anxious, just take this oil, she gave me some ylang-ylang, and just pop a couple of drops on a tissue and just inhale it when you feel overwhelmed. And you know what? I carried ylang-ylang around with me for 10 years in London. It did not leave my side, and I swore by it, and that's what sort of launched me into aromatherapy as well. So, yeah, pretty amazing. The feet are so important. So let's just have a look. You know, so when I'll just talk a little bit more about me. Is that okay with you? Because I forgot something. Okay, so I then returned to Australia, and I went to Nature Care College in Sydney. And I studied there for 10 long years. So part-time, whilst I was raising my 3 beautiful children, I studied and I qualified in diplomas of advanced naturopathy, aromatherapy, herbal medicine, homeopathy, rheumatoid massage, iridology, and in the end they threw me out. They said, you know what, it's time to go, because I got addicted to the study, I really did, and the more, I think Kim mentioned, the more you the more you study, the more you learn, the more you want to learn. And that's what happened, and I literally just stayed there for a long time. So then I started my practice in Sydney with another naturopath, and it's so beautiful to have all these modalities to work with because, as you know, we are all individuals, and you know, we're all so different. So I realized that, my goodness, you know, there's going to be some people who don't believe in homeopathy, and there's a lot of those. There's a lot of people who don't want to take a herbal medicine. They don't want their feet touched. Can you believe that? Like, I can't believe that, but yes, there are. And so, you know, I was able to tap into all those modalities, which was lovely with people. But, you know, my passion always. Sorry, I had done this again. So my passion has always remained with reflexology and aromatherapy. And 80% of my clients now get it whether they like it or not. That's the truth. Because it's what I find works. It's what people are compliant with. And when you're facilitating healing, like, you know, I'm not their healer, they're their healer, but I'm facilitating that. And so you have to work with what people are going to work with, right? You know, if people aren't going to take a herbal medicine, there's no point giving it. But what I've found with reflexology and aromatherapy, somehow you get a really high compliance level. And that's why I continue to use it today. So yeah, I love these two modalities. Here we go, the feet. So the feet are so important. A lot of people neglect the feet, and I'm not sure why. I think perhaps because in our Western world we wear shoes, which is why I just don't like wearing shoes very much. And we have to wear shoes, right? Because people judge us if we don't. But also, I think it's because it's the other end of our body to our intellect, and we kind of forget about them, which is really not cool either. And so our feet are so important. You know, we get up every day, like I did this morning, into the shower, get in the car, drive here. We don't even think about the fact that we need the feet to get there, right? So if we don't have our feet, we go nowhere in life pretty fast. We have to look after our feet. And what I've found with my clients is that it's only until something happens to their feet, or they get pain or discomfort, and they go, oh, I can't walk. And well, I think that's a sign sometimes to maybe look at the direction you're walking in, or maybe you need a rest or something, because that's what I've found in my own life anyway. But you know, the feet are our contact with you, as Kim pointed out. You know, take your shoes off, go walk on the grass, go walk on the sand. This is our connection to our planet, and there's no better healing than that. And you know, when I was trekking many years ago in the Himalayas, I noticed that my two guides didn't wear shoes at all. They walked across the stones and the branches and rough terrain. I used to think, oh, you know, their feet, this is before I studied reflexology, their feet must be really hurting. Not a flinch. It looked like they were just gliding on air. And you know what? They're also all smiling. And I reckon they're getting some pretty awesome reflexology, right? And yeah, it just amazed me back then. And also the feet, as I said, you know, I believe it's walking in the right direction of life. You know, sometimes if my clients hurt themselves, I personally did actually hurt my own foot and my calf muscle, and it was a big sign for me that I had to stop. I was just go. And you know, if it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't have stopped. It made me stop. So yeah, listen to your feet, listen to your body. And you know, and also, you know, with the feet, I don't know this, but apparently if you live to about 80 years of age, you'll walk about 150,000 miles in your lifetime. I've done the planet a couple of times. That's scary. Pardon? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so reflexology. Reflexology's been around for thousands and thousands of years in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, although, you know, of course, as I said, when I studied back in the 80s, not many people even heard of it. In fact, when I walked into Nature Care, I remember asking about reflexology, and they kind of like, what? And I'm like, oh, okay. I think they were just incorporated back then. So, yeah, traditional Chinese medicine, they look at our vital energy, the qi flowing through our body. And it's really important to keep that flow of energy. If there's no qi, there's no life. And so when there's a blockage in the qi, then it's really important to unblock those blockages and help keep the vital force running. And we can do this so beautifully with reflexology and with acupuncture. In fact, when I have clients who don't really know what reflexology is, I just tell them, well, it's kind of like acupuncture without needles. Of course, there's differences, but it's working through the meridians, through the energy fields of the body, keeping that chi flowing. And also, this is an interesting thing that I'll share with you about my own life. There's always a correlation between the physical body and the emotional body. So, when you're looking at the liver, there's that correlating anger and resentment. With grief, it's the lungs. With the kidneys, it's fear. And with, obviously with your digestion, it's assimilating with the ideas. Now this happened to me, so I know this is totally true. And I've seen it time and time again in my clinic. As I said to you, when I was young, I had a lot of trauma. So when I was very young, sexually abused. And I actually wet the bed. So I wet the bed for a long time because I lived in fear. And I wet the bed way past when it's appropriate to wet the bed. So I didn't want to go to friends' places because I was fearful of wetting the bed, so I'd stay awake all night and face the bed. This went on for a long time. So I didn't really, obviously, I didn't have any idea what was going on in my body back then. So when I started studying at aged care college, I went to a TCM practitioner who's very well respected back then. I think his name was Rob, I have on memory. And we went through I said to him, do you think my liver's okay? Because, as a teenager, I've been drinking a bit of alcohol. He was like, your liver, I'm worried about, it's your kidneys. And I went, oh, really? Okay. So, that was a long time prior to me being diagnosed with a kidney disorder. So I'd gone to, after having children, I went to the GP just for routine blood test. And she said, everything's fine except your kidneys. Your kidney function is not. It's really not good. And I was thinking, oh, that's bizarre, that's weird. And then the penny dropped, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go back and see Rob. So I went back to see Rob, and we had a bit of a chat. And he said, his feeling was, and I know this is true, that, all that fear, and I sat on that fear. I didn't tell anyone about what had happened to me as a child till I was 35 years of age. That's a long time to keep stuff inside, and to have that fear, and that anxiety keep churning away. And so he said he believed it was that was actually then affecting my kidney energy. So I went back and said this to the doctor, and she went, oh, yeah, no, that's nothing to do with it. But you know what? After we worked on my kidneys with acupuncture, reflexology, essential oils, and emotional healing, my kidneys are totally fine now. That's the truth. And 10 years later, there's never been a blood test result that has come back with negativity in any respect. So I know how important that emotional, physical correlation is. And the beautiful thing about reflexology is we can tap into that. We can tap into the physical, but we can also tap into the emotional. So yeah, what is it? It's massaging the feet. And it's working through the peripheral nerves of the feet, which tap into the central nervous system, so the brain and the spinal cord, which then splay through the rest of the body and calm down the organs and all the systems of the body to help them to flow, to function, optimally. So this is really important. And also reflexology is really important for the mind, and I believe in the way that I work anyway, when I'm actually doing a reflexology treatment, I'm working on the other part of the body, the other extreme of the body. I'm pulling the energy down, grounding that person. And a lot of people feel that they're I guess a state of meditation by the end of their treatment because they feel so relaxed. Their head is free of all that frenetic energy because you've been able to ground them down and get rid of all that energy. And for me, there's nothing better. It's amazing. So yeah, reflexology is a powerful modality that takes you to a receptive place where you don't have that conscious frenetic energy. And this is where the essential oils can really do an amazing job. And we know how powerful essential oils are, right? I mean, they're so powerful. They're a medicine, and they are absolutely exquisite. So let's just talk about that now. No, we won't. We'll talk about something else. I forgot about this one. So when I'm doing a reflexology treatment, you're looking at the feet as if they're looking at you. And when we start a treatment, we start with this area here, which is the area of the head. So if you're looking at the two toes together, you're looking at the head, and then the circumference around that is the neck. Now, I'll just interrupt here. If anyone's studying reflexology right now, they may be taught in a little bit of a different way. Remember, I studied in London back in the 80s, so I know there's been a little techniques changed somewhat, but I still practice the way that I was taught because I love that. So then we've got the spine, and we've got all the organs of the body. Now, the way I was taught back in London is you always start on the right side. And interestingly, I've had a lot of treatments, they start on the left, but the reason why the lady who taught me said to start on the right is because our heart is slightly centered off to the left, and she said it's really lovely to warm the body up before you go smack bang into the heart. So I've always worked in that way. And so basically, also, you always use the whole feet when you're doing it. It doesn't matter what someone comes into me, if they're coming for a kidney problem or a stress or headaches or whatever it is, I always do a full treatment if I can. I mean, obviously if I don't have time, but ideally, it's great to work the whole feet so you balance the entire feet. And then you go back onto the areas that you specifically want to work with. You can't diagnose through reflexology like iodology, you can't diagnose, but you can actually feel congestion. You can feel areas of underactivity or overactivity, and you can help to balance those and bring them back into balance. So yeah, reflexology is amazing. And I do want to just share with you one client experience I had in Tasmania. This lady came to me on a gift voucher, so she didn't come to see me specifically for any reason. And so she was lying down, chilled out, and I started doing the treatment on her. And I started on the head as I do. And I was here on the little area of the pituitary. And she said to me, she said, what is that? She said, it's really painful. And I said, it's the pituitary gland. And she said, okay. So she lay back down. And I continued the treatment. And when I got to the area of the breast later on in the treatment, she said, she said, what's that? And I said, it's the breast. And she said, well, it's really painful as well. And she looked up, she sat upright, and she stared at me. And I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I am. She said, I just can't believe what you just said. And I said, well, what? And she said, what happened to me is that 2 years ago, I started to get pain in one of my breasts and a little bit of discharge from the nipple, a bit of pus and a bit of blood. And she went to the GP and they did all the tests, mammograms, ultrasounds, thinking it may have been cancer. They couldn't find anything pathologically wrong with her. So she was passed pillar to post and, over the next 18 months. And then just 3 months prior to coming to see me for that treatment, she had been sent to an endocrinologist. And he'd done a CAT scan on the brain and they found a benign tumour pressing on the pituitary. So the endocrinologist thought that because of the interrelationship, of course, with the pituitary being your master gland and controlling your endocrine system, and such an intricate relationship with the hormonal system, felt that it was a nerve network that was actually doing something to create that disharmony in her breast. So that was pretty amazing. So I know she'd been diagnosed then, but had she come into me probably maybe a month or 2 months before seeing that endocrinologist, and we were doing the reflexology and she told me a bit about the breast, and then we found the discomfort in the pituitary gland, I'm thinking that, it would have panned out, but I would have then suggested she see an endocrinologist, knowing that that's a pretty tight relationship there. So yeah, pretty powerful, the old reflexology. Okay, so now, essential oils, as I said, have been my other passion. And I've been using essential oils since I was like this high. I mean, my friends used to spend a lot of money on, exclusive perfumes, and I used to just be really hippie and use the oils, and still do. So I just love my essential oils. I use them in a bath on my body, in my burner back then, and now my diffuser every single day. I have people wafting past my clinic and going, what's that? Of course, in my therapy, I use it in massage therapy, and of course I do in reflexology. Essential oils are amazing. And when I started studying essential oils, there were a few of them I kind of, vetiver and chamomile, But now I totally love these oils. I mean, vetiver is one of my favorite oils because I've learned to respect them, because I've worked with them and seen the power of them. And so I don't think there's one essential oil, quite honestly, that I don't like. There's not. And then when I went to Tasmania, lived in Tasmania, and discovered Kunzea oil. This has got to be one of my go-to oils, and of course this is what we produced our products in the strength of Kunzea oil. It is a beautiful oil, but I didn't know anything about it until I lived in Tasmania. So let's have a little look at Kunzea oil. So Kunzea oil comes from the Aromatica family, so related to the melaleuca. It's actually found in the cooler climates, predominantly in the northeast of Tasmania and in southern parts of Australia. So it's quite a beautiful plant. It grows to about 5 meters and has this really beautiful little white delicate flower that comes out in the spring. And I believe now, because it's so pretty, that people are using it for hedges down in Tasmania. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, they're also using dried Kunzea in alcohol. Now, can you believe that alcohol promotes inflammation, it's anti-inflammatory, so there's probably a big market there, right? So yeah, Kunzea oil is beautiful. Now, as I said, I didn't know anything about Kunzea oil until I went to Tasmania. So I opened up my clinic there, and I had a couple of people come in because I sold essential oils and asking for Kunzea, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any, but I'll look into it. And I was still setting up my clinic, so I hadn't had time to look into it as yet. And this elderly man came in and asked for Kunzea oil, and I said, I'm really sorry, 2 other people have come in, I'll look into it. What? He said, what? You don't have Kunzea oil? And I went, no. He said, it's a miracle oil, you've got to get some Kunzea oil. And I went, whoa, if this is such a good oil, I really need to look into it. And so I did. I mean, all the Tasmanian people knew how good it was. I never even heard of it. So the story goes, and I believe this is true, that the gentleman who actually first discovered the properties of Kunzea ambigua noticed that his whole fence in his property was rusting except one little area, and that's where Kunzea was growing. So he reefed out some of the Kunzea, took it to the Tasmanian University, and they did some trials and tests. And it has been now declared an anti-inflammatory, so it's very good for reducing inflammation in the body. So this is very exciting. And it's also known as tick bush, so a lot of the first settlers noticed that there are a lot of animals hiding under it because, obviously didn't like ticks, so they wanted to get the ticks off them, so that was pretty cool. And also the indigenous people, native Australians, used it for wound healing, so inflammation, but also for head lice and also stomach complaints. So it's a very versatile oil. It also has not just anti-inflammatory, but antiviral, antibacterial and antifungal properties, and it's also beautiful and clearing for the mind. So as in native Australians using it for inflammation, we know that inflammation is a big problem in our society, and it's growing and growing and growing, unfortunately. So not just, your musculoskeletal problems, but inflammation. We need inflammation, of course we do for survival, but when it gets out of hand, it leads to a lot of problems, and I see this time and time again in my clinic. So leading to cancer, autoimmune disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all these modern diseases, we have to control inflammation. And we need to do that obviously through changing our diet. There's a whole range of different things we need to do. But to have an oil that is so powerfully anti-inflammatory is extremely exciting. And it's in the infancy of its tests and trials. So there's going to be a lot more found out about this beautiful oil. And as I said, after uncovering the findings of Kunzea, of course, I use it now in everybody, whether they like it or not. I do. But most people love the smell of it, thank goodness. They go, oh yeah, it just smells like clear and fresh and beautiful. And I've never had anyone, thankfully, react to it. I mean, it's very safe as far as I can see. And they also take it home, the little bottle home, to use if they get coughs and colds in the diffuser. It's got antifungal properties, so great in a foot spa if they've got fungal infections. It's great as to clear the mind. There's so many ways you can use Kunzea ambigua oil. And why Kunzea? Because I work with a lot of inflammatory problems in my clinic, a lot. Even people who come in with back pain, or I'm a remedial massage therapist as well, but a lot of people opt for the reflexology with Kunzea oil, in preference to massage because they find it works better. So that's interesting. And it's non-irritant, non-toxic, it's very safe, as I said, and it's very good for emotional balancing. And as I say, it's in its infancy, so Kunzea oil, not a lot has, obviously it's now been declared anti-inflammatory, and it's also got the antiviral and antibacterial properties, but there's so much more to be found out about it. What we do know is that there's 5 very important sesquiterpene compounds, and it's the combination of these compounds that give its beautiful anti-inflammatory effect. But there is a lot of demand for Kunzea oil now, and this is not just in Australia, but worldwide. So the more and more people that are finding out about its benefits and effects, the more testing is being done. And I, for one, because I've been working with this oil for 10 years, know that there's going to be a lot more revealed about the oil in years to come. I'm very excited about that. So reflexology and Kunzea oil equals total balance? Yes. because this is what I've found in my practice after working with people for 15 years, working with the reflexology and the Kunzea oil together. Helps to treat things internally as well as externally. So using both reflexology and Kunzea oil together gives a multifaceted method of targeting pain. Pain being a big problem, not just your musculoskeletal pain. As I said, I do a lot of remedial therapy, a lot of remedial massage, but also people come into me with other types of pain, internal pain, inflammatory bowel disease, endometriosis, migraines, pain associated with autoimmune disease like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, pain. And there's a big call for something that's going to help to alleviate that pain. I've been able to find that I get a lot of success by using the oil with reflexology to get into the bloodstream and target the areas you want to target very efficiently. And it's this flow of positivity, which is so beautiful. So we know that inflammation causes pain. We know that Kunzea oil helps to reduce inflammation. And we know that if you reduce pain and inflammation, of course, you calm the mind. And when you calm the mind, you get positive thoughts, right? And that's how this beautiful flow of positivity happens. And all too often, I see the other thing happening in our society, this negative thing happening, which is just really not awesome. People come into me and they've been diagnosed with some type of inflammation or pain, and they don't want to change their diet, or they're a bit depressed or whatever. Their doctor put them on anti-inflammatories. That then compromises the gut. In the compromised gut, they don't digest and assimilate their food and nutrition, so that affects their immune system, so then they get something else wrong with them, and then they get a side effect from the drugs they're taking, and then they get depressed, and then they get anger, and then that affects their liver, right? Because remember, liver and the anger. So then there's this really horrible spiral downturn. So we really need to keep this positive flow, and that's what I've been able to achieve with reflexology and the essential oils, Kunzea oil. And honestly, I would say that, I'd say 100% of people that walk out of my clinic walk out with a smile on their face. That's pretty cool. That's helping with that positive flow of energy. And why the feet? Well, because I love the feet, I'm a reflexologist. But the feet are amazing. I mean, there's 5 layers of skin, there's no hair follicles, there's no sebaceous glands, there's no sebum, and there's beautiful open pores. So there's no sebaceous glands in the palms of the hand and the soles of the feet. This is a great way to actually get that oil into the bloodstream really quickly. Now, when I studied aromatherapy back all those years ago, we were told they weren't into ingesting essential oils back then. I still don't. I'm not saying you don't, it's not a good thing to do, but I just don't personally. I like to use essential oils absorbed through the skin or through the limbic system, which is the way that I was taught, because it's very safe. It bypasses digestion, because if you have a compromised digestive system or a liver that doesn't respond well, then you may get toxic overload, and that can be dangerous. So I think it's a very safe way to use on the feet to absorb straight into the bloodstream, and then you can direct it with your reflexology to wherever you want to go, and it's amazing. Reflexology balances the physical body and relaxes the mind to help regain positive thoughts, whilst Kunzea oil alleviates pain, inflammation, and discomfort of the body. I was just going to say one thing as well about those feet. I remember when my kids were little and I was studying, and I remember one of my teachers saying, hey, if they get sick, grate up some garlic, rub it on the soles of their feet, leave the garlic in the socks overnight, and it will absorb through the feet into the bloodstream and work as a natural antibiotic. And it worked every single time. We had a really smelly house, we had really well children. And just to finish off, I just like to say that positive thoughts are really, really important. And as Kim says, well, I really resonate with her talk, because I feel exactly how she does. But 10%, it's 10% what happens to us in our lives, and 90% what we think about it, our thoughts. And this is so true. Like, we can't change the past, we can't change the inevitable or the future. We can't change my mum and dad. We can't change anything that happens to our life. I couldn't change the fact that my children lost their father 3 years ago, but we can change our thoughts. And positivity is so important in our lives. So on that note, I'd just like to say that from my point of view as a naturopath, reflexologist, and those other things that I studied way back then, I just believe that, to lead a really beautiful life, you need to eat well, fresh veggies, avoid chemicals and processed foods, get some vitamin D, get some sun. Vitamin D deficiency is the biggest cause of depression. I came across so many people, I'm living in Tasmania, who put on antidepressants, and I get them tested for their vitamin D levels, and guess what? Get them on the vitamin D and their depression goes. Walk along the sand, connect with the earth. Check in for a reflexology treatment with somebody, once a month to help balance your body. And bathe yourself in essential oils daily because they're so beautiful. Smile, surround yourself with really positive people, and enjoy life. And whilst you're on the Gold Coast, go down the beach, kick off your shoes and walk on the sand because your feet are going to love it. Thank you.